Many buyers think finance comes first and property comes second, but in reality, they both work best together. I have Nikki, an experienced buyer's agent, with me, and I'm going to get her to introduce herself to everyone.
Hi, I'm Nikki McComb. I'm a buyer's agent in Sydney. I have a full Class 1 license in real estate and I have a corporate license as well. So I'm Nikki Rose, but I also work mostly for Property Buyer in Sydney.
We will answer 5 common pain points and questions we receive from first home buyers, time poor professionals, and investors entering the market. We're going to discuss the biggest mistakes buyers make before searching, when to speak to a broker or a buyer's agent, or both, how buyers avoid overpaying, what buyers agents see that buyers don't, and who benefits from using a buyer's agent. So, Nikki, I'm going to ask you a question. What is the biggest mistake buyers make before they even start looking for a property?
Well, I think the first thing is when somebody decides they want to buy a property, they really need to assess their financial situation and they need professional people often to help them with that, like tax returns and how much income and what sort of what's their top amount that they can borrow. So I think that talking to their broker is probably one of the first points of call so they can get their understand their financials better before they start trying to run out and buy a house or a property.
I totally agree. So, my suggestion is anyone looking for a property, get a pre approval in place. That does two things. It shows the seller that you are serious. When it comes to appointing someone like Nikki, she knows exactly what to look for and the budget you have to obtain the home that you want. Getting the pre approval first and then searching for a property with a buyer's agent will be second. How early should someone speak to a buyer's agent and a mortgage broker in the buying process?
It'll depend on how much time that person has to pursue the property themselves. I find a lot of people are overseas or interstate or time poor, first home buyers that don't have confidence, people that don't really know where to buy. They're the sort of people that I would speak to fairly early in the piece. Once they have established what their pre-approval is and have an understanding whether they can actually make the mortgage payments and all that sort of thing, which comes in the pre-approval, I think that's the first stage. And then you get a buyer's agent in if you're struggling. I would say if you haven't bought within the first 3 to 6 months, you probably need to help.
I totally agree because I do see too often people getting a pre approval and then we extend again. So the pre approvals do last 90 days and then we can extend. But when once you start to go into the 9 months, that's when I think getting a buyer's agent to help you buy your own home and be in a home sooner. Because while you're waiting, the property prices are increasing. Your situation may change. You need to update your pay slips and other documents every 90 days. So my suggestion is getting your pre-approval, speaking to a buyer's agent, definitely when you've hit the 3 months, just to help you narrow down where you're looking, the price range, and where you're often not looking.
Yes, often the buyer's expectation first up is to buy everything they possibly want within a package of money that they've got a pre-approval for, but quite often they can't afford it. Quite often, if they're waiting too long, the market's moved, and some of the areas I've seen 20% increases in Sydney. So I think it's important to get in quickly, and that's where I can come in and actually help people buy a bit quicker.
What do buyers agents see on the ground that banks don't?
Well, I think one of the things is I go and look at each property. I look at all sorts of things in video of the property. And I think if you're looking at pretty pictures online, you're probably not getting a true indication of what you can actually afford and buy, and you're not seeing any problems or potential risks. So I think it's important to have somebody who's experienced to go and actually look at the properties and send you accurate information. And yeah, I think that's very important in the beginning. That's what a buyer's agent can do when a lot of people are time poor or they don't even know what they're looking at. And sometimes it's, for me, it's often even just looking underneath the house or trying to get underneath the property to see if there's any structural issues. And I know that you would normally get a building and pest inspector to do that, but at least if you have an idea up front that there might be potential risks or issues, it can help to just have the buyer's agent go through and do a lot much more detailed inspection.
Yeah, I would agree that playing that role of inspecting the property thoroughly
Yeah.
gives the buyers a really good insight because you know what to look for. And most first home buyers, busy professionals, or first time investors don't actually know what they're looking for. How do you help buyers avoid overpaying in today's market?
It's really important to have a close relationship once you've found a property, talk to the agent, but it's also about what the history is and what the comparables are selling for at that time. So I generally think if you're looking past 3 months and expect the property to be in that sort of range, you're not going to find that sort of that range is no longer possible. You're looking at a higher range generally everywhere. So usually in the last 1 to 2 months of comparables helps people to understand what the property is likely to go for.
My understanding too, Nikki, is because you have such a close relationship with other buyers agents and real estate agents, you can negotiate really well off market, not only when it's on market. Is that correct?
I think it's also important to know that I've actually bought a lot of pre-markets, so they never ever get advertised. With off markets, often Domain or realestate.com will tell a lot of people about it because they know they're looking. And agents also will send it out to everybody that's on their list. But what I do is try and talk to agents ahead and send emails and speak to them and try and get in quickly before a property even gets listed or has any pictures taken. So I've actually bought a few like that.
And I've also known firsthand, Nikki, that you actually negotiate a better price, save them thousands of dollars, depending on the property, the location, which saves them time.
I think the thing to remember in the Sydney market is we don't have a lot of stock. We haven't got a lot of choices. People are holding back and have been really with the COVID situation. We haven't really got as much on the market as we used to have. So it's quite competitive. Sometimes it's being real about buying a property that you really want. I try to negotiate it before an auction, but if that's not possible, and sometimes it isn't possible in a divorce or a situation where somebody in a estate and things like that, where there might be a deceased estate, those things will go to auction, but it's often about understanding, negotiating it with the agent and trying to get a real price, because I think expecting the buyer's agent to be able to get you thousands of dollars off a property when they've got 400 other people that want to pay higher isn't real. It's about getting in and talking to them, giving them the surety of the finance being ready and done, and the deal can be done quickly. So you might be able to get a deal overnight, which is very difficult for somebody who isn't in that position, that is doesn't know how to negotiate and all that sort of thing. Sometimes it can just be the speed of the deal, and you might be going to pay the same as somebody else or a little more maybe. But I think in 5 or 10 years, most people are very happy they bought that property because every buyer thinks they're getting it it's too expensive, and every seller thinks they're not getting enough for their property. So somewhere in between, you try to get them something, and you know that, especially say in Sydney in particular, you're going to get capital gain. It's sure.
Definitely. My last question, who benefits most from a buyer's agent and who probably doesn't need one?
I think the people that benefit most are people that are, well, generally time poor and just haven't got time to get out there and see them. When I'm looking at 40 properties every week, they're finding it difficult to see 5 on the weekend, sort of thing. And by the time they've made their mind up, those properties have been sold. I think first time buyers need the confidence and the help to be able to work out, is this the right place? Is this the right area? And is this property the best that I can do? So often that can be something that helps. I think interstate buyers, people wanting confidentiality. So sometimes it'll be people that don't want it, they don't want to be seen in public. They might be somebody who's famous, they might be a celebrity, they could be a politician, somebody you're helping that wants to keep a low profile, so they'll send in a buyer's agent to help them. The people that don't benefit are people that have experienced investors and buyers, people that have the experience. They've done it before, they know how to do it. They'll often take risks and buy something that sometimes they haven't even looked at, but the numbers stack up, so they might do that. Um, People in where there's not a lot of competition, that can be beneficial. I think Sydney's pretty much fairly competitive everywhere you go, though. I think if you're buying a house and land package, I mean, there's not much a buyer's agent can do about that. So those people are buying that sort of thing. It's a set price generally, a new build and all that sort of thing. People that are low budget properties, but they don't want to afford to pay for somebody to do the job and they're prepared to spend sometimes up to 18 months looking. And sometimes that is actually real. I sometimes get people that say that they can't afford a buyer's agent, so they go off and they come back to me in 6 months or sometimes 18 months and say, we still haven't bought. That's a real problem because they've missed the market and they've got to keep borrowing more and more to get up there to be able to afford what they should have bought a year ago.
I'd have to agree with you, Nikki, because I do see a lot of my clients that do get a pre-approval and they haven't narrowed down the suburb, or they've narrowed down what they'd like to spend. And sometimes it can go 12 months without finding the right property. And by that time, property market has increased and now they have to search in another area where their budget again can help them buy the right property. And sometimes they don't even go ahead and buy the property. They get so
Yes.
deterred by the market, going to auctions, inspecting properties. It is sometimes overwhelming for them. At Mortgage Pass, we work alongside Nikki. So our clients know how to buy well. So if any of these questions raise some concerns for you, I encourage you to get in contact with the team at Mortgage Pass or Nikki from Property Buyers in Sydney. Thank you so much for your time, Nikki. I appreciate all your advice and insight on the property market and what a buyer's agent can do for first-time buyers, busy professionals, and first-time investors.
Yes. Thank you.
Book an assessment consultation with Mortgage Pass, and Nikki's details in the link below. You can reach out to her directly. She'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you and direct you towards buying your home sooner.